everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is part of a new series called Mystery Card Monday, where we pick a technique and a card size from a bucket. This is the card that I made, and I put 4 techniques into a little bucket and picked one. The one that I picked was water stamping, which was probably my least favorite one of the 4. And then the 4 card sizes, I picked an A2 size card, which is what I normally do. So one easy and one that was a little bit of a challenge. So the stamp that we're going to use for this technique is MFT's Crosshatch Polka Dot background stamp. And I cut a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, so a full card front. And I'm using 3 colors of Distress Oxide in Tumbled Glass, Uncharted Mariner, and Prized Ribbon to create the background. So while you're sitting here watching me blend this, I thought I would give you a little bit of a story time. Oh, as usual, this is one about Mila. If you've been here for any length of time, you know that I drive Mila to daycare once a week, and occasionally I will pick her up. And we have some of the most random conversations because, she's a 3-year-old, and whatever pops into her mind is what she wants to talk about or has questions on. So this time was bugs, which I don't know where that came from, but then she did tell me that Nora was reading her a book about bugs, so I guess that really was stuck in her mind. And then she saw the neck pillow in my car, and she told me she had one and Nora had one, but she doesn't know where they are. So I said, well, maybe they're with your suitcase at home. And she said, I don't have a suitcase. And it was just such a sad little sigh, like she didn't have one. So I said something to my sister-in-law and brother. She had told me she wanted a frozen one. So I said something to my sister-in-law and brother, and my brother said, oh, get her one for her birthday. Her birthday's next month. I was like, oh, of course I will. So my sister-in-law sends me a link to one, and it's not a frozen one. So on the same site, I found one that was frozen, and I sent it to her, and they were both hard-sided ones. And my sister-in-law said, under no circumstances do I want a frozen one, which I can understand because Mila will grow out of the frozen. And this one is kind of a rainbow ombre, which will grow a little bit more with her. So I get it. So she's not going to get the frozen one, which will probably upset her a little bit, but she will be getting a suitcase. So I had her, after we already had this conversation, I had her in the car, and she looked at the neck pillow again, and she said, I really don't have a suitcase. And I'm like, all right, I get the hint. You want a suitcase for your birthday. She said, my birthday's soon too. That's what she said to me. So I said, oh, okay. I said, well, do you want me to get you a suitcase for your birthday? And she said, yes. So that's what she's going to get. So somehow we went from bugs to suitcases. But she'll be happy when we go away in a couple months, and she will have a brand new suitcase to lug around the airport, or somebody else will have her brand new suitcase to lug around. So that's what I'm getting Mila for her birthday in about a month. But she's just so funny and dramatic about things like that, and she is, she can act more like a teenager than a 3-year-old when she has these conversations. So it's really funny. I love just spending time with her and hearing what's on her mind, and it's usually very, very random. So let's get back to the card, and I finished the background for this, and now we are going to get ready to do the water stamping. And again, this technique was something that I don't think I've ever really done before, so I wasn't really crazy about doing it, but I am trying to challenge myself this year. So I took that background stamp and spritzed it with water. I did end up putting more water on it, which I should not have done. Do a very light mist of water because you don't want the color to pool. And you'll see in a minute when I lift this up that it did in a couple places, but it turned out to be totally fine. So I'm going to use my dry erase board marker, eraser, whatever you want to call it, to go ahead and rub on top of it to really get the stamp transferred over. And you can see the spots where a little bit too much water got picked up. So I just dabbed it with a towel and let it dry completely. Now I'm using Honeybee Deckled Edge A2 Honey Cuts. I'm using the largest size and running that through my Big Shot, in addition to the C9 Say Hello dies. So we're using the big die. and I wanted to make that hello pop up off of the paper. So ran it through, kept all the pieces, and then traced the die. Now I could have just put a solid piece of paper behind it, but this is what I thought I was going to do, with some kind of shadow and pop it up off the shadow. But it didn't work out, so you could skip this step and just put a sheet of paper behind the cutout in your background like this. You could just totally glue that down. This, because I cut around the outside edges of the die, it actually is the die cut line is inside of the die. So when you do this, it actually makes it a little bit larger than the opening, so it worked out perfectly. And I left this in because I wasn't really sure how I was going to do this, if I was going to use the light blue outline for it, the light blue outline for some of the pieces on here. But I decided against that, and just to use the light blue as the backer piece. This could be white, this could be any color. You're going to see a teeny tiny bit of it in the end result because I didn't line it up exactly perfectly, but it's totally fine. So I'm using my Honeybee Be Creative glue to add a little bit of glue to around the outside of the letters, and then I'm going to put that backer piece on there. Again, this could just be a solid piece of cardstock that's a little bit wider than the opening that you put on there. You really just need it as somewhere to put the outline in place and hold it on there, as well as the popped up pieces. So I'm using that same Honeybee Be Creative glue to add a couple of dots around it, and you'll see the one part is still between the two L's, that little piece is still popped in there. I didn't bother popping that up on foam because it was so tiny. So placing that into, pushing it up to the edges just to make sure that I have enough room for this hello. And then I'm going to use foam tape on the back of this and securing all the pieces in place. So this part was a little bit difficult because I hadn't thought about how I was going to put the pop-up pieces in there, like the pieces that fell out. So I wasn't really sure, and I was just cutting out tiny little foam squares and placing them around. Then it turns out what I do is I pop those other pieces back into place, and then I use a longer strip to hold them into place. So I folded the tape over because it's way too thick, and then you see I covered the entire thing. So that's going to hold, that tape is going to hold that center part into place. You could have done, popped out the middle piece of that. So there's like an outline and then there's a middle piece inside. You could have popped out that inside piece and put that same light blue piece in there. I just decided not to make it easier on myself. Went ahead and did all of the foam tape, and then went ahead and put it into place. So I'm making sure that all of the little center pieces are down where I need them to be, that they're stuck down, and then pop the hello into place. So I thought that looked really cute. It made it stand out a little bit from the background, but it's also has that background on there. The other way you could have done it was cut it out several times from multiple layers of cardstock and then put that together. So you can make it like a kind of like a thicker, if you guys remember what those things were. So I'm using that same Honeybee Be Creative glue to glue it down onto an A2 size card. It's that same light blue that I used for the backer. And that's the card. So the watercolor stamping was a lot of fun. I hope that you guys try that out. And if you do, let me know. I'd love to check out your cards. Here's a picture of the card. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And I'll see you again real soon for another video. Bye.